4.8.8, Prabhupada mentions 6 benefits of hearing the Dhruva Maharaj pastime. I mean, he doesn't make 1 through 6 list, but he mentions specifically these are benefits. So let's hear from Prabhupada what he says are benefits specifically of the Druva pastime. And the first one is detachment, specifically detachment from material possessions, both gross and subtle. Now, the person who put this presentation together, the one on the left is clear, the one on the right is maybe deserves a little explanation. The devotee is taking whatever they have and offering it to Krishna. That's detachment. That's the complete form of detachment. And the person on the right, he's the attached person, attached to money and whatever money can purchase material possessions. So through bhakti, through devotion, there's the consequence, natural consequence is detachment, because he didn't start with detachment, but bhakti brought him to detachment. Next, there's a nice image. We recognize watering the root of the tree example, and by watering the root of the tree, all the parts of the tree become nourished. Specifically, the nourishment in Dhruva's case, began with his austerities and penances. Now this is Prabhupada's words, enhancement of one's devotional service by austerities and penances. Some time ago, a 9-year-old girl asked in the question and answer session, why do we fast on Ekadasi? Or what's the purpose of fasting on appearance days and Ekadasi? So here's a nice answer from Prabhupada. There's austerities of body, mind, and words. So by restraining the body and tendency for the body to engage the senses and objects of the senses for enjoyment, or the mind from speculating, or the words in some other ways that are not elevating. So we check those tendencies and engage body, mind, and words in Krishna service, that's what the real standard of detachment. And similarly by austerities and penances, by practicing. Now the austerities of Druva were quite extreme, not to be imitated. Although some years ago, there was a nice man who, whenever he came before the deities, he would stand before the deities like this for as long as he could stand in one position, with his hands folded and offering his prayers, like Druva. That's the second. Here's the third. The image is this young man sitting here reading a book on how to know Krishna. And sure enough, here comes Krishna. By making the Krishna connection, making steps in the direction of Krishna connection, one's faith becomes enhanced or improved. Now, association with those who have faith, like Druva had with Narada, or for that matter, Druva had with his mother, then that is a way to also improve faith. But how he went about improving his faith in Krishna, then that is a nice way to also improve, a nice purpose behind hearing the story. Now, he began somewhere else, but he ended up in the transcendental position. So this is an important purpose to encourage us how we can also become elevated to the transcendental position through the medium of devotional service. The emphasis, of course, again and again, is going to the devotion with which he did what he did. He wanted very, very much, he had material motive, but he wanted very, very much to attain Vishnu. There's an important verse that Prabhupada makes reference to in this purport, the Svetashvatara Upanishad verse, Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir, Yata Devi Tata Garau, very often quoted verse. The meaning of scripture is revealed to the person who has devotion to Guru as much as he has devotion to the Lord. And certainly that was the case with Druva. He had so much appreciation and so much faith in Narada, and rightly so, and natural. He hadn't met Narada before. He must have heard about Narada, because as soon as Narada came, he understood, here's a person who can introduce me to Vishnu, or can bring me to Vishnu. So that was his request. But he had enormous faith and submission to Narada, and Narada blessed him. In relation to this verse, there's not in this particular purport, but Prabhupada refers to commentary on Vedanta Sutra given by Madhva on this point of bhakti. Bhaktir evainam nayati bhaktir evainam darshayanti. Bhakti brings one to the Lord and shows the Lord. So that's nice. We get the devotee that's carrying bhakti gives bhakti, and once we receive bhakti, it brings one to the Lord, and then in turn the Lord shows himself. Bhakti through the medium of bhakti. And that's what happened to Druva. He saw Vishnu on the strength of his bhakti, not in the strength of the austerities, or it's in the strength of his bhakti. The seed of it was receiving from Narada, and it grew and grew and grew and became very strong. It's a detail, but it's a nice detail. According to Rupa Goswami, this form of Vishnu that Druva saw is Prishnigarbha, because Druva appeared in Satya Yuga, correct? Druva appeared in Satya Yuga, and one of the forms of the Lord who appears in Satya Yuga is Prishnigarbha, the son of Sutapa and Prishni. Krishna appeared in Satya Yuga as Prishnigarbha. Krishna appeared in Treta Yuga as Vamana. Krishna appeared in Dwapara Yuga as Vasudeva Krishna, according to what Krishna said himself. So this is the form. According to Rupa Goswami, in Lago Bhagavatamrita, he writes, this is the form, Prishnigarbha, that Druva saw. Interesting. Because he descended, in one sense, he descended from Svetadvip. Correct? The Devatas went, they appealed, he came. They were all choked up and couldn't breathe, and they went to Lord Vishnu. Don't worry, it's just a small boy doing austerities. I'll stop his austerities. So he came from Svetadvip, but he was already present in the form of Prishnigarbha. And he came on the back of Garuda. In any case, this is what Rupa Goswami writes in Lago Bhagavatamrita. So there were 6 purposes. Here's number 5. Purposes or benefits in hearing this pastime. Connection and experience of the personality of Godhead, not just intellectually. Well, that's important. Intellectual, that's good, but it's not sufficient. It's not really what brings real satisfaction. Connection through the bhakti process, and experience through revelation, Krishna revealing himself to the devotee. That has to do with his merciful nature. We're just reading this in the morning discussion from Brahma's prayers. It's so fresh. 10:14:30, where Brahma says one who receives even a fragment, lesha is the word, like a little speck of mercy, then that person, by receiving mercy, one can know about otherwise unknowable. Inquisitiveness certainly is imperative, but without mercy, inquisitiveness isn't going to bring knowledge. So one can know Krishna not just intellectually, but by direct experience. And that's because he's a very kind and affectionate person. So now comes our last of the 6. Hearing this narration generates a feeling of pure devotional service in the hearts of the hearers. It just has that potency. So those are 6 benefits given by Prabhupada 4.8.8. Here are 2 additional lessons that I, in preparing this whole topic, they became very prominent in my mind. From the Bhagavatam, from Uddhava Gita section of the Bhagavatam, Krishna says to Uddhava, "Only by bhakti with full faith can the devotees obtain me." Now, it's mentioned in the commentary there to that particular verse. This is demonstrated in the pastimes of Druva and Prahlada. What's demonstrated? Bhakti with full faith, then one can obtain Krishna. So where do we have bhakti? Something. And it definitely has room for improvement, kind of bhakti. And it's not just the volumes of what we do, but the consciousness with which we do what we do, the devotion, or specifically here, the faith. But only by bhakti with full faith can the devotees obtain me. Druva obtained him. And another reference, by the association of bhakti, like a touchstone, the body made of the 3 gunas becomes free from the gunas. This is directly our Acharya's commentary. The body made of the 3 gunas becomes free from the gunas. And that's by the association of bhakti. So, hearing about one who has bhakti inspires bhakti. It revives bhakti. And the liberation that Druva received at the very end, this is a nice painting of Druva in his Vaikuntha Vimana, and looking over his shoulder, there's his mother riding in her custom Vimana, because she also had pure bhakti. And it's in fact through her bhakti that Druva initially received bhakti, and then further nourished by Narada. So the commentary on this says specifically, what the liberation that Druva got was not Sayuja, but it was Dasya, the servant. And further, the wise say that liberation means following Vishnu. Now, he was a follower of Vishnu, and therefore, because he was such a strong follower of Vishnu, that's what he got. He got Vishnu's association. That is liberation in the spiritual realm after his Druva life. What's the meaning of his name? There's several. They're related. One of the meanings is unchanging or supreme truth. Druva. It's a good name. Or the permanent. We'll find the word Druva directly in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18. Permanent. Just like the pole star, Druva Loka, it's permanent. It doesn't move, it doesn't go out of existence. Even when the universe goes out of existence, it's permanent. Druva. And eternal. And similarly fixed. So the meanings of Druva can be any one of those. Now in the story, all this evening's class is just introduction and to give us like a picture of what we're going to be entering into, the topic. In the cultivation of devotional service, at least for Druva, it started way down there at the bottom left corner, mixed devotion. But in the course of time, he made it all the way to pure devotion. So what went in between? Well, there were some obstacles that he overcame. And if we had, an audience, and the virtual audience is going to be hard to do something interactive. But if there was an opportunity to pause here and do something interactive and have people think at least, if not write down or share some personal block or blocks, internal, external, that hinder your practice of devotional service. Now, it's easy to say what Dhruva's was. It was retaliation. He was in such a get-back mood. He was told by his mother, he was told by Narada, this isn't the way to reach Vishnu. You have to let go of that. And he couldn't, or he wouldn't. Some blocks that may hinder our practice is a weak relationship with the name, weak relationship with Vaishnavas, weak relationship with services, or these are areas where there may be blocks in our relationship. So just to make it subjective and not just informational but devotional, Druva can serve as a role model or a hero that we can really look to and take inspiration from and take strength from. There's potencies in the Druva story. There's potencies in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And those potencies, by hearing carefully and considering the importance of or the purport of these messages, one can be also carried beyond our own blocks, our own obstacles in the bhakti path. Here's something from teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Generally, people come into association of devotees to mitigate some material wants. But the influence of a pure devotee frees a man from all material hankerings, all material desires, by enabling him to relish the taste of devotional service. Devotional service is so nice and pure that it purifies the devotee, and he forgets all material ambitions as soon as he engages fully in the transcendental loving service of Krishna. Practical example is Druva Maharaj, right, in teachings of Lord Chaitanya. who wanted something material from Krishna and therefore engaged in devotional service. When the Lord appeared before Druva as four-handed Vishnu, Druva told him, "My dear Lord, because I engaged in your devotional service with great austerity and penances, I am now seeing you, whom even great demigods and sages have difficulty seeing. Now I am pleased and all my desires are satisfied. I do not want anything else. I was searching from some broken glass, but instead I have found a great and valuable gem." Now that's not from the Bhagavatam, that's from the Puranas narrating the same Druva pastime. That's where that comes from. Thus, Dhruva Maharaja expressed his full satisfaction and refused to ask anything from the Lord. So this is going beyond material desire. But generally people come with material desire. Sakam, that's that lower left corner going up. So devotional service, striving through the medium of devotional service, even to achieve the fulfillment of material desire, results in evaporation of the material desire. And now he still achieved the kingdom, the worldly one and the spiritual one. But his aspiration was gone by that time. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in many places, speaks of the Druva pastime in this. It's not derogatory, it's just an educational way. This Artarti, the very well-known verse from the Bhagavad Gita. 4 types of pious people render service to Krishna, and one of those is the Artarti, the desirer of wealth. Four kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service to me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, so Artha, Jigyasu, Artarti, and Gyani, one who is searching for knowledge. Well, this is Druva. He is the desire of wealth. That's how he got started. This is also spoken of in the prayers of the residents to the Lord from the residents of Jambudvip. Whenever Krishna is requested to fulfill one's desires, he undoubtedly does so, but he does not award anything which, after being enjoyed, will cause one to petition him again and again to fulfill further desires. When one has other desires but engages in the Lord's service, Krishna forcibly gives one shelter at his lotus feet, where one will forget all other desires. Become desireless by having desires. No, not by having desires, but by taking shelter of Krishna, or the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. He gives his lotus feet. One who has desires in relation to Krishna, because that was what Dhruva's program was. He became purified. This is in relation to the Sudama Brahman story. This is similar on desires and desirelessness. The verse reads, "To a devotee who lacks spiritual insight, the Supreme Lord will not grant the wonderful opulences of this world, kingly power, and material assets. Indeed, in his infinite wisdom, the unborn Lord well knows how the intoxication of pride can cause the downfall of the wealthy." Now this is spoken of in relation to Sudama when he was leaving the palace from Dwarka, going back to his home. He was thinking, Krishna is very kind. because he knows the tendency when you receive something to become proud of that something, become proud and attached to something. So, since he knows how much tendency towards pride there is, he didn't even ask me why I came to visit him, because I would have had to say. And then if I had to say, then he would have given me. But he didn't ask me because he knows the risk of pride. Jiva Goswami writes, since the Lord is full of all powers, Bhagavan, and is always perfect in himself, Ajaha, he is independent in bestowing. He does not give wealth, kingdom, and power because of the variety of mentalities, chitra, in the devotees. The Lord sees that intoxication with wealth, kingdom, and power causes downfall from one's position, or makes one fall from one's dharma to hell. Since the Lord is omniscient, vichakshanaha, doubt, then why did he give opulences to Druva, Prahlada, and Ambarish? Answer, they had good intelligence. They had good qualities because of the strength of their intelligence. But the Lord does not give to those with meager intelligence because it sees it would create obstacles to attaining him. I put in big letters purposely. Because of the strength of their intelligence. They had having good qualities. We were discussing this topic a little bit over the past weekend. The qualities of a devotee are very important. And good qualities come on the strength of one's intelligence. That is, intelligence can sort out this is favorable and that's unfavorable, and with strength you do the favorable, and with strength you discard the unfavorable. Buddhi is needed to progress on bhakti path. Intelligence from Krishna. But Krishna will give that intelligence when he sees there's a sincere desire. So strength from bhakti comes intelligence, comes good qualities. So he gave to Druva because Druva had that intelligence. He didn't become enamored when he received the kingdom of his father. And he continues to this day in Dhruva doing very nicely. Here's an important verse from Canto 7, Chapter 10. This is Prahlada praying to Lord Ashingadev. O my Lord, when a human being is able to give up all material desires in his mind, he becomes eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours. So that's what happened with Druva. He became purified. Perfectly purified of desire. So much so that when the Lord came and said, what would you like? Please don't ask me to take something. There's a similar message, or at least tangentially related, that comes. It's a nice painting. This is King Nimi doing a yajna. There's the brahmanas conducting the yajna. There's his ministers over here on the right. And there's the Navayogendras. And just as the yajna was beginning, they descended and the king stood up, stopped the yajna, which you're not supposed to do, and addressed the sages. And in this discussion, there's a nice message spoken to the king. When one seriously engages in the devotional service of the personality of Godhead, fixing the Lord's lotus feet within one's heart as the only goal of life, one can destroy the innumerable impure desires lodged within the heart as a result of one's previous fruitive work within the three modes of material nature. When the heart is thus purified, one can directly perceive both the Supreme Lord and oneself as transcendental entities. Thus, one becomes perfect in spiritual understanding through direct experience, just as one can directly experience the sun shine through normal, healthy vision. That's a nice section. Fear and fearlessness section, and realization, and the darkness of ignorance being gone. In commentary on this particular verse, here's Vishwanath writing, the perfect stage of devotional service indicated in this verse can be observed in the activities of such great devotees as Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj approached the personality guided, desiring a political adjustment on the material platform, but when purified by chanting the holy name of God, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, he felt no further need for material sense gratification, as stated in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Janiyatiyashu Vairagyam. As soon as one advances in devotional service, one is freed from the embarrassment of superficial material desires. There it is. That's the Druva story. Superficial material desires and the embarrassment that goes with them. But one can become free from that through this power of devotional service. Nice message. It's from the Hari Bhakti Sudadaya, I believe, is this verse that he was thinking of a broken piece of glass. Instead, he got a jewel. Looks like a stone, not a piece of glass. The purifying power. Here is the Hari Bhakti Sudadaya verse, quoted by King Kulashekar. Druva sought out the Supreme Lord as a way to obtain a material kingdom, but after he had performed severe austerities and came face to face with Lord Vishnu, he declared, Swamin Katarto Smi Varamnayache. You listen to Prabhupada lectures and you'll hear that one many times. Swamin Katarto Smi Varamnayache. Quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. My dear Lord, I am fully satisfied. You do not ask from you any benediction for material sense gratification. This is indicating, hearing this story again and again. We already mentioned. There's on our left, that's Gadadhar Pandit reciting Bhagavatam, and in front of him are Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and one other Vaishnava, perhaps Haridas, hearing the message of Druva hundreds of times, again and again. In the fourth canto, directly spoken by Maitreya, one should chant of the character and activities of Dhruva Maharaj, both in the morning and in the evening, with great attention and care, in a society of brahmanas or other twice-born persons. Now, he is the one that narrated all this in the fourth canto, Maitreya to Vidura. Mention is made, we're almost done. Mention is made in teachings of Queen Kunti to the Druva story, of course, purport by Prabhupada. When Dhruva Maharaj was undergoing penance and meditating upon the form of Vishnu within his heart, the Vishnu form suddenly disappeared, and his meditation broke. Upon opening his eyes, Dhruva Maharaj immediately saw Vishnu before him. Like Dhruva Maharaj, we should always think of Krishna, and when we attain perfection, we shall see Krishna before us. This is the process. We should not be too hasty. We should wait for the mature time. Of course, it is good to be eager to see Krishna, but we should not become discouraged if we don't see him immediately. There's the family chart. This is now beginning of creation, not just Satya Yuga. Brahma directly had as son and daughter Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa. They had 3 daughters and 2 sons. Uttanapada was one of those sons. Priyavrata was another one of the sons. And Uttanapada had 2 queens in those green boxes there, Suniti and Suruchi. And the firstborn son was Druva. The elder of the queens was Suniti. And Druva had a stepbrother named Uttama. And Suruchi is the one that was very nasty to him and would provoked his wanting to get revenge. And here's a nice photograph of a temple in Vrindavan on top of a hill called Dhruva in a place, in one of the 12 forests of Vrindavan called Madhuvan. That's the place where Druva was sent by Narada to do his austerities and chant his mantra and connect with Vishnu. And the deity that you see on the altar, this is the central altar. In the center, of course, is Vishnu. And on our left, or the deity's right, that's Narada with his Veena. And then the little deity over there on our right, or the deity's left, that's Druva. This is the worshipable deity, the Dhruva. And Druva had direct darshan and conversation with Vishnu. Pretty amazing. Little boy. So it's a nice, the storyline is very sweet, and messages within it are very important for moving on the path of bhakti. So there's an introduction, and tomorrow we'll begin the chapter. Druva, the son of, doesn't tell about his birth, it starts with his stepbrother is there, and his stepmother is there, and his father is there, and there's a scene. That's how it begins. So let's see if there's some discussion. 7:25.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. This is not even a question, but I just want to confirm that I understood it right.
Okay.
So you mentioned that that Lord doesn't give the wealth to. So I'm assuming it's for devotees only, because in non-devotees, I see a lot of people have wealth, even if they are not.
And pride.
Yes. So it's the.
He protects his devotees, knowing that they want him,
Right.
and knowing that pride is an obstacle to reach him.
Okay. And then.
But he gives to those who are capable of handling without becoming proud.
But non-devotees, he doesn't care. So
It's not like he doesn't care, but the same protection isn't extended. That, or because they want so ardently, okay. He's fulfilling desires.
Okay. And then you mentioned that in Satya Yuga, Krishna appeared as Prishni Garbha.
Prishni Garbha.
Yes.
Yes, that one?
Yes. So Prishni Garbha, or that's Lord Vishnu, right?
Yes.
So it's the same.
Yes. Prishni and Sutapa they did austerities, long time, tens of thousands of years. And Lord Vishnu came before them and said, "You please me very much by your austerities. I will become your son for 3 lifetimes." And then he later became the son, Prishnagarbha. Vishnu did something similar with Kardama Muni before he was even married. He was off in the forest, right, doing austerities to please Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu came on the back of Garuda. Karamuni fell before him and offered obeisances again and again. And he said, I will appear as your son, before he even appeared. And so he came as Kapila. So similar. There's points of similarity. Okay.
And third question is not from this class, but a couple days ago you mentioned that how Lord delivered Shishupal. Shishupal was always constantly thinking of Krishna.
Yes.
But Krishna still liberated him,
Yes.
even though he was like an enemy.
Yes.
And I was just thinking that when we hear that, and then the other side is one has to do so much of penances and austerities to attain Krishna. So am I understanding it right? But today I just saw that you mentioned that even Dhruva Maharaj obtained Krishna not through austerities, but through his bhakti.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, what we heard specifically, Prabhupada saying, it assisted or nourished. It was as beneficial, helpful. It's not the essence. Something that's beneficial isn't the essence.
So Dhruva Maharaj, he elevated himself,
Yes.
his bhakti level from
Yes.
Mishra Bhakti to
Yes. Yes.
For people like us, when you are working outside all day long, and so I'm just thinking, as long as you're thinking of Krishna,
Yes.
Sometimes I'm talking about myself, so I'm even when it's negative thoughts about myself. Okay, if I'm outside, I feel that I cannot even serve the deities when I'm not home. We skip the lunch offering but you're thinking of that. Is that good enough?
Well, Krishna knows that you're thinking of him with some regret that because of circumstances, I'm not able to do the direct devotion. So your specific question, is that enough? Well, in course of time, that because of that bhakti factor, circumstances will be adjusted. However long that takes, circumstances will be adjusted. And so, that which you wished to do yesterday, as long as that wish to do tomorrow is still in place, you'll derive great happiness. It's a little bit like our COVID situation. Can't go to the temple, can't this, can't that. So it'll make us appreciate when we can so much more, rather than taking it for granted, etc. Kirtan in the association of devotees. To have a virtual kirtan is better than no kirtan, but it's not the same. And then it'll make one appreciate all the more. So similarly, a life of duty, where the devotional, direct devotional, is because of other duties, I can't directly engage in those. And when the opportunity, as long as that, your question was, is that enough? Well, it's enough provided that when the circumstance does change, it's still in place. And Krishna will recognize. Now, it's not easy to maintain the enthusiasm when the kirtan opportunity or the going before the deity or the something isn't in place anymore for quite a stretch of time. It's easy to become conditioned and habituated to something else. So a good thing to do consideration at least, is when the days are you don't have to be out and about, like weekends or whatever, that you have a plan, like a weekend plan or a holiday plan or something plan, and I want to fill as much as I can with something that's direct devotional. So it's revitalizing, rejuvenating.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else in the room? Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj,
The pastime of
Dhruva Maharaj,
Druva, yeah.
Yeah. So the bhakti part is the following the instruction of Narada Muni. Is that right?
Yeah, he's following the instruction.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
but-
not completely. Narada said, don't, some other things, and as he said, good instruction I can't follow. So the instructions that he was willing to accept, he was ready to accept, he followed very carefully.
Yeah, but his intention is still that retaliation. Retaliation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is not a pure devotional service.
At the beginning, no,
Yeah.
mixed.
So did he? Throughout the process, he performed so many austerities
Yes.
with that same intention. The intention is that is my understanding. I don't
Get
know.
something, yeah.
So until Lord Vishnu appeared, his intention was still same until.
No,
that moment?
his hankering had shifted already. It was made squeaky clean when the Lord appeared. He touched him with his conch shell, and it was all over. But before the touching of the conch shell and appearing before him, he had become very elevated, obviously, by power and by bhakti, both.
So that was my question, Maharaj. Even with the not right intention, he was performing bhakti,
Yes.
so that attracted the Lord. Is that
So what happened? The last part that attracted him more?
that attracted the Lord?
Attracted the Lord.
Is that
Well, it's not because it was mixed it attracted the Lord, or because it was intense it attracted the Lord. It's he was following Narada, and he was attached to following Narada, and thus he was becoming gradually purified. So the bhakti was what was attracting the Lord. The mixed was not, but the bhakti was attracting the Lord. And the bhakti overwhelmed the mixed. That attracted the Lord. How are we doing online? Okay.
First question is from Amol Bakshi Prabhu. Sorry. The question is, a few days ago, I found that I can focus better during chanting if I think that I'm already immersed in Krishna's material energy and hence already connected with him. All I need to do is focus on his spiritual form. Is that way of thinking impersonalism because I'm identifying Krishna with his material energy?
No. But start with fixing your mind on his name more than fixing his mind on his form. That's what our teaching says. But, it's right within Brahma's prayers. We heard not so many verses ago. He is the universe in the non-different sense. We certainly, you and I and Brahma and Vyasadeva understand he's not. It's not. God is not a pantheistic God. He's not nature or the mountain or the sunrise or the something. But none, at the same time that the universe is his expansion, and thus we're within it. So, yeah.
This question is from Sunil Sharma Prabhu. One of the qualities I appreciate of Dhruva Maharaj is his determination. How can I improve my determination to do loving devotional service 24/7? As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Pritipurvakam. So how to improve my determination to do loving service 24/7?
Well, two things. One is take a role model like Druva and hear about him, remember him, speak about him, pray to him, and that way associate with him, and that way take on his quality of determination. There's other Vaishnavas that also have great determination, but he is a fantastic example. So by hearing, chanting, remembering, and absorption in the personalities that have that quality that you aspire for, it will help you gain that quality. And the second, Prabhupada specifically said in the lecture series on Chapter 6, determination is increased or strengthened by Vaishnava austerities. That example is fasting on Ekadasi or a half-day fast on Vishnu Tattva's the appearance days. Or, even the ordinary duties that we do, doing your homework or conducting your business or whatever it is, those are austerities for sure. And if they're accepted on the principle that they're to be dedicated to Krishna, then that's elevating also. Is that it?
No, there are a few more.
Okay.
Couple of devotees responded to the question about what are your one or two blocks in life, requesting your comment.
That was just a engaging, ice-breaking kind of activity. The feedback from them sharing what their blocks are. Whoever the persons, rather than take up our group time, consider as we go along with this 12-part seminar, how by hearing about Dhruva's determination, his devotion, his submission to Narada, and everything else, that may inspire you to overcome what your blocks are. Take it in a personal application way. Okay?
This question is from Girivara Dhari Prabhu. Reading of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita gives good realizations or understandings, but they don't sustain long. I want to sustain it every moment of my life. Can you please guide me?
Yeah,
how
become
I
a
can...
pure devotee. Hare Krishna. Go through the Untitled Chapter process very, very determinedly, and you'll get there.
And this question is from Sanchari. In thinking of Dhruva Maharaj or even Prahlada Maharaj, it seems that it is important that we have an innocent heart to really be immersed in devotional service. How do we protect that innocence?
Well, these how-to questions, it's just, by applying the bhakti process carefully. Keep good association avoid unwholesome association. And when you engage in your practices of bhakti, think carefully about your intention, because that intention will help you stay focused and literally simple in heart. Or say it the other, if you're not so focused, the distraction is going to be there, and absorption and the material energy in so many varieties of ways will be the default position.
Sri Radhika Mataji's questions. There are two questions and an appreciation. First question. One may feel embarrassed about his material desires, but not have the strength of Krishna consciousness to choose a higher taste. Where to repose and how to process this negative emotion so that one's forward march continues rather than letting it pull us down.
Well, it's right on topic with Druva, and what he did is not really perfect. I mean, he got to the stage of perfection, but he stayed immersed in those negative feelings for a long time. And that was part of the impetus to, the get back impetus. So that's not best for us. But to see by knowledge, that is to say, those feelings arise and will continue to arise as long as there's attachment to the temporary. And so you let go of the attachment to the temporary enough that you can invest your attention in transcendence or in sat. Leave behind, let go of the asat, because it's miserable. The negative emotions are miserable. The cause of the negative emotions, the real problem is investing in the temporary. It's not the circumstance per se. It's our investing in the temporary. Doing your duty is required, but being attached to the temporary is not. That's unwholesome. It'll bring the negative emotions, so you let go of that attachment to the temporary while carrying out your duties. That's such a simple, basic instruction of Bhagavad Gita. We're entitled to perform our prescribed duty, but we're not entitled to the result.
The appreciation from Sri Radhika Mataji is, we discussed recently in Chicago that the essence in Lord Brahma's erudite prayers is the glorification of bhakti.
Yes.
Similarly, the glorification of bhakti continues in the Dhruva Maharaj pastime.
Yes.
So question 2. Mother Suniti is a role model for me. Is there any information provided regarding how her bhakti seed sprouted or was nurtured so that she was able to be a mother of such integrity?
It's not explicit or any kind of detail, but she's from the royal family, and her father-in-law is Swayambhuva Manu. Her husband's father is Swayambhuva Manu. So she certainly had some good association to get, because that's how bhakti is received and grows, from good association. And the royal family likely also knew very well. So she from that association. Other than that, we don't. I'm unaware of any of the details.
This question is from Sachisuta Prabhu. what instructions does Dhruva Maharaj follow from Narada, and what other instructions he says that he cannot follow? Is this some sort of filtering the instructions? How to
Yes, it's
understand?
definitely filtering of instructions. And what he took was the bhakti process in minute detail. That's what he accepted. What he was unable to accept was to let go of his motivations and his ill feelings. And, the get back mentality. He was unable to let go of that.
One more question from Sri Radhika Mataji. Mother Suniti's teaching to Dhruva to never wish ill to someone who has harmed us is very inspiring for me. When I look back at times such as these in my life, now in hindsight, I can see how those persons had such an important role to play in my journey towards Krishna. And I even feel a sense of gratitude. However, my immediate reaction is of ill wishing. Where do I start with applying Mother Suniti's instruction if it's a struggle for me in the moment?
Well, keep revisiting the story. We cultivate the mood by seeing and associating with good examples. I can say for myself, explaining this pastime as many times as I have, she has become like a superhero. She's really a fantastic person. She's a very, very special person. And she's neglected. She's practically rejected, living in some remote place apart from the king, her husband. And she's not whining and complaining and grieving and carrying on. She has enormous quality, and her protection capacity as a mother is unfailing. And the protection is not just because the protection idea could be, oh, she did that, I'll scratch her eyes out. But it's not that. She gave some good instruction. Take that good instruction. She was she was a saintly person. Not ordinary. And Druva benefited by her association, or from her association.
This question is from Uttama Bhakta Prabhu. When Dhruva reached Samadhi, Lord appeared before him because he was aware that Vishnu is the Supreme Lord and that was his goal. When a yogi reaches Samadhi, what are the possible scenarios? I'm thinking Paramatma also looks like Vishnu but small form.
What are the scenarios? There's a whole range of how one might take a position in relation to seeing Supersoul, if that elevated position is achieved. There's a whole range of things that do happen or can happen. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Okay, great.
So my question is, the very first slide where it shows the Dhruva Maharaj as a king.
Yeah.
Question is that how did he get purified? So when his material desire was to get the highest kingdom,
Yes, it was.
is that a material?
Oh, that's definitely fully material desire. Max to the max.
So how did he get purified to
Bhakti. And the bhakti, the starting ingredient was sadhu sangha. And that started with his mother. And so she sent him on the Vishnu path. And then it was Narada. And he held enormous gratitude for both of them. as he was going forward with his, big material desire, a seed was this gratitude to Narada. He's given me the opportunity to get what I want, that I would otherwise be unable to get. He gave me this bhakti process. That was the seed that grew and grew and grew. And that dispelled the mix. All that was left was Vishnu, bhakti. It didn't happen mechanically. It happened spiritually or devotionally. And, it was extreme. His austerities were extreme. And so it took 6 months. For us, it's not 6 months. But the principle is bhakti. And the essence, the heart of the heart of bhakti, the heart of bhakti is the intention or striving for the pleasure of Krishna, to bring happiness to Krishna. And that stays, that dispels the unclean things. Okay.
This question is from Amara Mataji. In Grihastha ashram, one may get bewildered while fulfilling the desires of dependents, maybe due to attachments. And one can always think that a particular desire is okay since they want their dependent to progress peacefully. But one may end up over-endeavoring sometimes. In this context, how can a grihastha understand if a particular desire is material or spiritual and whether it should be pursued or not?
Well, there's like 6 things. One is over-endeavoring, and the other is material spiritual, making decisions. There's a whole bunch of things in that little package. A rule of thumb is who's at the center. So something can become spiritual if Krishna is at the center, and something can become material, even if it's like, let's build a temple because I'll get recognition and I'll get, many lifetimes of heavenly existence, and so there can be material even if it's the target is apparently Krishna. So as a rule of thumb about spiritual material is whose satisfaction is to be achieved. And generally we're in a mixed position. So the more spiritual is, you know what? This mixed position, this shadow of devotion is not satisfying. I want to move in the direction of unmixed. So there's some determination. That even that particular thought process is I'm still at the center. So when Krishna becomes the center, that's spiritual, and we should accept those things which are favorable for that. That's the decision-making process. Question. Accept things favorable, reject things unfavorable for bhakti, pure bhakti.
This question is from Amrita Keli Mataji.
I'm going to end with this one.
We heard this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 5:19 regarding the Lord giving the shelter to the devotee at his lotus feet instead of fulfilling his material desires, even when the devotee does not genuinely aspire for it. Is this giving of shelter a gradual process?
Yes.
My understanding is that it's not similar to what we see in Dhruva Maharaja's case. Is that a correct understanding?
No. Druva was intense, and we're not. Ours is gradual. Dhruva's was the fast lane. He was really intense. So what about us? Can we strengthen the intensity of our bhakti? Yes. Is there any room in that? Are we hit the ceiling? There's room. But we also have to be realistic about our capacity and not be impulsive and take 10 steps forward and 15 steps back. We have to, we should move according to our capacity. But we definitely want to increase intensity as time passes. Okay. Prabhupada ki say. You forgot, huh?
Finish typing one more question.
Tomorrow. Nice topic.
I love hearing about Dhruva.
You do.
Every time.